Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Stewart. I am the lead coach and founder of Do Better Financial. If you've been joining us for the last few weeks for the 8 Ways to Improve Your Economy Facebook Live series. Hi, Hillary. Thanks for joining us today. Today is actually a Q&A session. I've gotten some questions from you guys over the last few weeks that I wanted to answer specifically. And so let's just jump right into it. The first question today is actually from Haley. She's a college student, and one of her questions was, how do you do your taxes in general, and how do you avoid getting audited for ignorance? These are great questions. I wish I'd asked them when I was your age. I actually got audited on my first taxes that I submitted myself because I forgot one of my W-2s, which brings me to the first point. I am not a tax professional, but I can give you some general advice based on the mistakes that I have made and the things that I have experienced since then. One of them is to get organized. The way that I now get organized is that at the beginning of the year, I create a folder that says the tax year on it. So for instance, last year's would have said taxes 2016. Hi Sharon, thanks for joining us today. And I put everything into that envelope or folder for that tax year that I'm going to need later. So that includes things like W-2s, 1099s, which are basically a record of anything that you've done. So they have them for interest, they have them for student loan payments, which may be important if you're in college or if you're still paying for college. Charitable contributions and receipts you receive for things like that. Medical expenses if you have an FSA, which is a flexible saving account, or an HSA, which is a health savings account. They're similar but not the same, and you might need different things based on which one you have. But I stick all that stuff into my folder so that no matter how I decide to file my taxes, I have everything I need and it's all easily organized and easily accessible, and I don't have to go hunting for it, right? So there's 3 options in general, 3 different ways to file your taxes. You can hire a professional, which is obviously the most expensive route. You can use tax software. You can either buy it and install it, or you can utilize it online, something like TurboTax or H&R Block that has, they actually have a software. Or you can literally get a calculator and a pen, and you can get your forms from the IRS. You can print them out off the website, and you can fill them in. These are your 3 options. So how do you decide between them? The biggest one is how complicated your taxes are. So if you're somebody who's just starting out, you only have one W-2 because you only had one job for the entire year, and you might have a couple 1099s, and you don't even have an HSA or an FSA, you just need to fill out some general information, you might be able to get away with using what they call the 1040EZ, which is a simplified, use that word loosely because you're talking about the government and the IRS here, but a simplified tax form that you can fill out with pencil and paper and calculator, right? The next level of complexity is something that we would call medium complexity. So that means you might have a house, you may have gotten married or divorced, you may have adopted or had children, you may be running a business, and depending on what kind of business, that'll increase the complexity of your taxes. I have done my own taxes, and as I mentioned, I got audited when I first started, but I've done my own taxes using TurboTax. This is not an endorsement for TurboTax, that's just who I use. I've done my own taxes with TurboTax for the last almost 10 years, maybe a little bit longer than that actually. And hi Margarita, thanks for joining us today. I've done them myself. I haven't had many problems. I've had a couple, but my taxes were relatively simplistic. As of this year, I will have to do business taxes as well, and I personally will be hiring a professional because I don't want to mess it up. Hi Latanya, thanks for joining us today. So what I'm going to be doing, what the other things you want to consider is how much something weird's going on my screen. The other thing you want to consider is how much energy and how much in time you have to devote to doing your taxes. Based on my own taxes and how much some of the research I've done, on average, if you're doing your own taxes, you need to delegate somewhere between 5 and 25 hours. So that's something like half a workday to a couple of work days, right? And I think the couple of work days, I'm sorry, 5 to 25, 5 to 12 hours, not 25. That's crazy. Somewhere between 5 and 12 hours. So it's 1 to 2 work days, basically, to get all of your things together and get them finalized and, checked and everything like that. Also, this is some energy. You're going to have to do all of that yourself if you either want to go with either of the first 2 options, which is paper and pencil or tax software. So if you don't want to deal with it, if you would prefer to take your little envelope and hand it to somebody and be like, here, take care of it, professional is the way to go. But that brings up the third factor to consider, and that is how much money you have to dedicate to it. So paper and pencil is basically free other than a stamp. H&R Block or something like that, TurboTax, can cost you somewhere between $20 and $50 depending on how complicated your tax situation is, whether or not you want to itemize your deductions. Those are big words, which just means do you want to break it down by item, or do you want to just take a general lump sum, which we call the standard deduction. And then hiring a professional can, cost you from $100 on up, depending on how complicated your tax situation is, how many moving parts you have. Hi, Kenneth. Thanks for joining us today. So based on those three things, you'll figure out how you want to do your taxes. That's a general idea of how to do them. The best way not to get audited, honestly, is keep things simple. If you can't find receipts for it, don't file it. And if you, honestly though, auditing is not the scary part. It's whether or not they find anything. They audit people kind of at random, as well as people who catch red flags. I've been red flagged for different things. For my charitable giving, I've been red flagged for the amount that I was deducting for student loans. It turned out that both me and my parents had deducted the same amount for student loans, so we had to fix that. But you do the best you can, and if you're not sure, ask lots of questions or get a professional. Hi, TJ. Thanks for joining us today. All right, second question. I'm trying to move through this pretty quick, guys. All right, 0% APR credit cards. This question came from Whitney, and she asked, how do 0% APR introductory offers work? Specifically the kind that they use on college students to give you a free t-shirt. Okay, I actually had to look these up. I signed up for one of these in college and didn't know how they worked, but I didn't use it very much, so it didn't bite me in the butt like it's done some other people. So here's the really important thing. You need to read the fine print. These vary a lot. I can give you some general tidbits, which I will, but these vary a lot. So the fine print is actually not that small. It's legally required to be of reading size, but it is going to be, when you first get a credit card, you open it up. On the front of the page, it has that nice little letter. It tells you all the perks. You turn it over, there's going to be a box, a black box, that will list the specific gotchas of your credit card. So here are some of the things you really need to know about 0% APR offers. The first one is their introductory. So it's just like when you go and get cable and they say, oh, it's $100 a month for the first 24 months. And then, of course, when month 25 hits, they increase the price to $459 or whatever it is, right? That's an exaggeration, but not much. So same thing goes with these introductory rate credit cards. It'll be 0% APR, which is the annual percentage rate, which is just the interest that you pay on any balance that you carry. They can range from 6 months to 21 months, but they're always limited. And then after those introductory periods end, your rate will kick up to whatever the going rate was according to the card. It could be somewhere between 5 and 25%. It can be higher than that. It can be anywhere in between there, okay? But read your fine print. Second thing you need to know, you do have to pay minimum payments. So usually the minimum payment is somewhere between 3 and 5% of the balance, and you would have to pay that every month. Some of these cards actually have it where if you don't pay your minimum balance on time, meaning if you're a day late, they would cancel your introductory offer. Some of them will give you a grace period between 30 and 60 days. Read your fine print. Last, two more things. Most of them don't apply to purchases and transfers, or they'll have different time periods for purchases and transfers. So the purchases part is usually something that the college students would deal with. So it'll say something like, oh, you have 6 months, 0% on purchases, which means any purchase that you make in the first 6 months that you allow a balance to roll over, they won't charge you on the balance rollover. Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining us today. They won't charge you on the balance rollover. It's a 0% rate. After the 6 month period, so month 7, any balance that you have, they will charge you whatever interest rate they told you that they would. So for transfers, this goes a little bit into people who might be trying to use 0% APRs as balance transfers for get out of debt plan. Usually, if you have both on a card, it'll say something like 6 months for a purchase, 6 months for purchases, and 20 months for transfers. So any purchases you make for the first 6 months would have 0%. At month 7, they would start charging you interest. And any balance you had transferred to the card for the first 20 months would have 0% interest. And at month 21, you'd have interest on anything on the card, right? That's a lot of information, and unfortunately, we're not done. If you do a balance transfer, some cards carry balance transfer fees, which are not complicated. Usually something like if you're transferring $10,000 from another card, they'll say it's a 3% balance transfer fee, so they would add $300 to your balance. Obviously, that's going to be lower than the large majority of interest rates that are on most credit cards. So here's the big thing you need to know. This is not a get out of debt magic pill if you are using balance transfers for that. This is about behavior. So if you transfer it and you start buying more things on the card, you're not doing any better than you were. And frequently, the interest rate that the card will increase to after your introductory period expires is higher than the card you transferred it from. There's a couple reasons for that. One of them, if you looked at our FICO one, is when you add new debt, your FICO score might drop a little bit, or your credit score, which means that the rate that they will charge you for borrowing will be higher. So the card you left had a 12% interest rate, you rolled it over, it does all this churn on your credit report, and now they're like, oh, we're going to give you an 18. You get to the end of that introductory period, and they say now you owe us 18% on whatever's left on the card. You're in worse shape because you used to owe 12, right? It's not a pill. The biggest thing you need to do, like I've said probably 8 times now, is read the fine print. This leads us to the next question, which came from Angel. Is all debt bad debt? And do I agree with Dave Ramsey that you shouldn't bother with it? My personal opinion is that it's not worth it. I never suggest that people go into debt. It's not something I do. Whenever you owe somebody something, it means that they have a right to your money or your property. It means they have a right to your money or your property. Chris, you're funny. Yeah, how much is required for them to be interested in giving you a loan? Entirely too much. So anytime they loan you money, they expect it back, and they expect it with interest. So once you start paying that money back, once you're required to pay that money back, and this includes things like student loans and mortgages, they have a right to some of your income, or they have a right to your property. Things like they can repossess your car, foreclose on your home. So you want to remember that while you can use debt to increase your wealth, it is possible. I'm not saying it's impossible. Certain things just aren't worth it. For instance, balance transfers. I know a lot of people use them. They're able to use them effectively, but in all honesty, you have to stay on top of this stuff. You can get caught and you can end up in worse shape than you started out by missing a payment, by missing the balance transfer date, by missing the payoff dates, by confusing when one part ends and another part starts. It's just not worth it in my personal opinion. Now, if you are dedicated to keeping up and keeping track of things like that, I'm not going to stop you. I'm also not going to suggest you do it, because it can be very confusing, and if you make a mistake, they can be very detrimental to your financial well-being. So while I don't, hi Mighty, thanks for joining us today. So while I'm not going to tell you that all debt is bad debt, quote unquote, I know a lot of people don't have the patience / the economy where they live, especially in California, makes it very difficult for you to save for a house and pay cash. That is something that I would like to do one day. I live in Houston, and I feel like it's more than possible. I'm also really cheap, so it's, that works out for me. But taking out a mortgage, hey, I understand. You want to get your house, pay the thing off. Don't babysit it. Get after it. Own your house. The grass will feel different when you're done. Promise. Last question was also from Angel, and it was, what was the best software to use to track your money or to budget? My personal favorite software is called YNAB. You Need a Budget. Catchy, right? It is not free. It's my personal favorite because it was free when I bought it. However, it is free for college students. So if you're a college student, go sign up for YNAB. Do it. Hi, Devin. Thanks for joining us today. Go sign up for YNAB. You're a college student. Um, that's my personal favorite. I like that it allows you to budget using your current account balance. I think that's really cool because I know a lot of people, they get confused when they're budgeting their full paycheck if their full paycheck's not. Yes, Anaya, you can get it too. You're not far off. A lot of people get confused if they're budgeting their whole paycheck and it's not in their bank account. So I like YNAB for that reason. Also, it's very intuitive to me. If it's not intuitive to you, there are lots of other options. Yes, Mint is a good one. Mint has a lot of, Chris mentioned Mint. Mint has a lot of moving parts. I was looking at it today. I used it years ago and I didn't keep up with it either. For me, it wasn't intuitive. They may have changed it since then, but if it's something that you like, you can definitely utilize it. The simplest option and free, magic word free, right, is EveryDollar. It's actually part of the Dave Ramsey offering. It's one of their offerings. They have a great budget. It's really simplistic, very intuitive, and you budget your paycheck only. So whatever your paycheck is for that month, you're going to budget it down to the penny, and that doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend it all. And we covered that in zero-based budgeting. So if you haven't seen that video, go back and check it out. But it does allow, both YNAB and EveryDollar allow you to link to your bank. So YNAB, if you get the paid version, which is all that's available now, I have the old version, so I paid for it already. But if you get the paid version, it will link to your bank account and it will automatically pull in your transactions so that you can assign them to where they go. EveryDollar, you have to pay for that. You can input your transactions manually free. Hi, Anitra, thanks for joining us today. Another one that I like is called Envelopes. It's like a hybrid between EveryDollar and YNAB. Hi, Beverly. Thanks for joining us today. It's a hybrid, so you can actually budget your paycheck on one screen, and then you can assign your money, assign the money that's in your account on another. My only hesitation with envelopes, honestly, is that it can be a little bit complicated. It took me a while to get used to it. I used it for a couple of months just to try to see, to give it a feel for it. I like it. It can be complicated. So if you're a person whose spreadsheets make your eyes glaze over and, dealing with a whole bunch of numbers is not your thing, I would definitely suggest EveryDollar. If you're somebody who prefers to budget based on what's in your account and you have a little bit of money to spend, I think YNAB's like $10 a month. It's not a lot. I would suggest YNAB. If you're somebody who is looking to do both and you are spreadsheet number savvy, I think you should try and give Envelopes a shot. It is free. Envelopes is the only one that is completely free. They do have paid options that give you more envelopes and more other things, but they are free. EveryDollar is free, except if you want to automatically import your transactions, it's a $10 fee, and I think YNAB is $10 a month too as well. So here's the last thing I want to say about budgeting software. While all of it's great, this is really about behavior. So no matter which budget software you pick, just like Chris said, if you never check it, if you don't keep up with it, it's no good to you. So figure out what works as far as your budget and then find software. Make that budget that's going to work for you, just like we discussed in our budgeting, in the budgeting video. Keep it simple. Make changes when things change. Don't make it a wish list. And then find software that's going to work for you. And also everything that I mentioned also has an app, which I think is important in this day and age. And I believe all three of them also have sharing capabilities. So if you're married or if you're in a household where you're sharing cards with whoever's there, it allows you to share back and forth so you can see, oh, so-and-so went to the grocery store and spent $25. There's, $30 left in the food budget when you go to the grocery store and buy the stuff they forgot, right? Okay. So I haven't seen any more questions pop up. If anybody has any extra questions, you can feel free to post them in the comments of this video after I post it later, or you can email me at christian@dobetterfinancial.com. If you need help with anything we discussed, other than taxes specifically, I can help you get organized, but I cannot do your taxes. That's not my gift. Amen. But if you need help with any of the things that we discussed today and you would like to have a consultation with me, they are free. They're not hard to set up. It'll be about 15 minutes. It's just a phone call. You can either email me at christian@dobetterfinancial.com or you can DM me on my personal page or on my business page. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. I do have a side note. I will come back for a short video next week, but I want you guys to join me. I'm going to be sharing with, oh, I forgot the name of her page. It's Deborah Franklin. I will be sharing in the Fempire Tour on August 12th, and I'm going to be on her radio show next Monday, the first Monday in August. I just drew a blank on what day that is, but the first Monday in August, I will be on her show. It's Monday at 7 p.m. No, it's 8 p.m. because it's 7 p.m. her time. She doesn't live in Houston. I'll be on her show that evening, so I would really like if you guys will join me. I'll put that link up shortly when they release it. She's doing another live feed today with some of the other ladies who will be on the panel for Fempire. Thank you, Chris. August 7th is Monday. Yeah, so I'll put that link up as well so that everybody can see what's going on. You should come out, join us at Fempire. Also this weekend on Saturday from 11 to 2, I believe it is. There is the Food Truck Festival, the Back to School Food Truck Festival. It's being hosted up in Humble, so if you live out that way or if you can get out that way, come join us. There'll be free school supplies. There's all kinds of food trucks. The food looks amazing. I will have a booth there. There will be some prizes and some giveaways. There's lots of fun stuff for kids to do, so come out, check it out. Oh, also, FYI, for those of you who are concerned, while it is technically outside, it is covered. So you won't be baking in the sun. There's no air conditioning, but there are fans, and you won't be baking. That's the good news. So, dress comfortable, come out, hang out with us. Thank you for joining me today, and I will see you next week. Have a good one.